Welcome to the Take Two Teacher Instructional Material Training for 4th and 5th grade math. Today we will review the following items in this training. Take Two program description, instructional material components, math focus standards, math daily overview, math instructional block, components of the instructional material. Program description. Take Two for Elementary gives 4th and 5th grade students an opportunity to retake the end of grade test. Prior to the re-administration of the test, students will be provided 9 days of instruction in math. The EOG for math will be re-administered on the last day of Take Two. For Take Two math, we will provide 2 workbooks, one for students and one for teachers. The teacher's guide will include math focus standards, math daily overview, math daily schedule breakdown, the daily lessons, which is sectioned by day, a test prep / overall review, which is used at the final day of instruction, calculator practice, which is included throughout each day but can be found toward the back of the book, and math activities and games, which is separate from your math block and provides a hands-on opportunity for students. The student workbook is broken down similarly with the math daily overview, daily lessons, their calculator practice, and math activities and games. Math focus standards. For the next 9 days, we will focus on the heavily weighted standards, and you can see them on your screen. For 4th grade, we will focus on numbers and operation in base 10, which is 22 to 27% of the test. Number and operation fractions is 27 to 32% of the test for 4th grade. For 5th grade, it's similar, with 22 to 27% of the test being numbers and operations in base 10, and numbers and operation fractions being 47 to 52% of the test. The daily overview. In the material provided, you will see a daily overview for each day. It also breaks it down by standard, the weight of the standard, how many questions you can see on the end of grade according to that standard, and the name of the unit that you will be teaching that day. So for example, for 4th grade, you see on the very first day, which is the 14th, we'll be focusing on NBT 2, which is 22 to 27% of the test, approximately 2 questions from that standard, and the name of the unit that you will be teaching is compared to multi-digit numbers, and you can see that throughout the program. It's the same for 5th grade as well. Each day is broken out by date, standard, weight, and question, and the name of the unit. Each day you will be allowed 2 hours of instruction for math. And you can see the breakdown on the screen. It's 120 minutes with 10 minutes being vocabulary review, 30 minutes on whole group lesson, 20 minutes on guided practice. There's a 10-minute energizer in there, 20 minutes of independent practice in small group, 20 minutes of calculated practice, and then 10 minutes of independent review. Now, some days the schedules will be revamped, but you will see that in your instructional material. That's due to a unit assessment being given and different instruction being provided that following day. The daily lesson. So as we talked about a few screens back, there's 120 minutes for instruction. So we allotted 10 minutes for vocabulary. In your instructional material, you'll see a Frayer, which has the vocabulary for that particular lesson. It's not your typical Frayer, it just focuses on the vocabulary, and in the center you will see the math concept. But each Frayer for the teacher has already been completed, and what we want to do is use that 10 minutes to get students to remember the vocabulary, write down any sample problems that will help them to remember that vocabulary. The Frayer for this in the student's book would look like this. For whole group instruction, we've allotted 30 minutes for that. This is a gradual release model. So you will see that it's broken out into Model It, Mathematical Discourse, which is your turn and talk, Connect It, and Try It. Next, you will have your guided practice. Your guided practice is actually an opportunity for students to work on some of what they've learned independently while you are circulating to see if they need any assistance. Are there any holes in their understanding? This is really their final opportunity to work on the material before they work independently. The next section is an energizer. So each lesson has a 10-minute energizer. This is a break for the students before they move into independent practice. Now, these energizers are from the publication entitled Energizers Classroom-Based Physical Activities 3.5, developed by Activity Promotion Laboratories in partnership with NCDPI, NC Healthy Schools, and BeActiveNC.org. Now, this is an opportunity for students to work independently. They are able to use all the skills that you've taught them during this independent practice, while teachers are pulling students based on need. The first students that should be pulled during this block are the ones who struggled with guided practice. We want to make sure that they have a firm understanding before moving them on to independent practice. So the thinking is to spend a few minutes trying to correct and fill any holes that the students still may have so that they are able to move quickly into independent practice. This is also an opportunity for teachers to pull students based on needs from other days or from a unit assessment. Again, what we're trying to do is to plug any holes to make sure we're clearing up any misconception during this time. For the day's lesson, you're able to go to the quick check and remediation section. It tells you a little bit about if a student gets this problem wrong, this is what you should do. So it's really explicitly tells you how to help students based on their miscue. And then the next part of the instructional block includes calculator practice. Now, calculator practice, we use assessment 1 from the Curriculum Associates material, but it's not an assessment. What we want you to do is to use 2 or 3 problems to get students using the calculator, and making sure that they have a firm understanding as to how to use that calculator as a resource. This is an opportunity for teachers to walk around, to circulate, to make sure that students have a firm understanding of the calculator. So in the back of the book, you'll find there are assessment items that can be used. You can choose them randomly based on the standard that you're covering for that day. And again, circulating to make sure that students are computing those problems accurately. Then the final part of the lesson for the day is independent review. This is a very important part of the lesson. Independent review gives you an opportunity to kind of go over what students worked on independently to make sure that they have a firm understanding. What you want is for students to be able to have conversations about their thinking. This is a great opportunity for them to display any of the models that they use to get to their answer, any of their techniques they used. Great opportunity for turn and talk for students to have conversations with each other so that we can get ideas from each other about how to tackle a particular problem. Now, other components of the lessons that you will see throughout the 9 days are, for example, remediation lessons. The remediation lesson typically occurs after the unit assessment. So once the unit assessment is given, the next day we'll have an abbreviated schedule where we'll be able to do a remediation lesson. This is simply making sure that students understand the problems that they got correct and the problems that they got incorrect and understanding why. So When you're giving back this material, once you scored it the day before, you want to review that. What was the thinking? Why did you get that wrong? And then explicitly show students how to solve that problem correctly. This is a really great opportunity from them to talk about the questions and the answers that we eliminated and why did we eliminate those answers. Sometimes understanding how you eliminated an answer is equally as important as getting the right answer, because you can gauge their thinking and making sure that they understand that particular concept. So during this remediation lesson, you want to make sure those 5 components are occurring. On the last day, which is the 9th day for instruction, you'll see test prep and overall review. So in each of the teacher material, you'll see the release tests, the most recent release test for math. But you won't find that material in the student book. The reason is we don't want students to sit and take that whole assessment. What we want teachers to do is to use it as a resource. So based on the 8 days prior, think about the areas that we might need to review. Some of the problems that students struggled a little bit with. Some of them that you want just to kind of keep sharp. And you would use that material to pull out problems that fit that criteria so students can solve those problems, but most importantly, have conversations about those problems. Having conversations with you, having conversations with peers about their thinking, to make sure this is the final day before they actually take the test, to kind of clear up any misconceptions and remind them of certain things. So you might post a problem on the board and remind them of a formula or a particular strategy in order to solve that problem. So in the material you'll be provided, this is a sample of what a daily schedule will look like. You'll see that it's broken out into each of the sections that we just went over, but in each of the sections you'll also see page numbers. It'll tell you what page, what section to go to. So the biggest piece is making sure that you're looking at the correct day and then following this material. If you find that section, it will explicitly tell you how to deliver that instruction. Now, the final section of your book will be math activities and games. Again, this is separate than your 120-minute block. This is most likely going to be about a 30-minute block of time where students get an opportunity to do some of that hands-on game related activities based on the standard. So in this section, you'll also see that it's broken out by day, and what we've tried to do is to make sure each day is aligned with each other. So if you notice the first day's lesson when we talked about NBT2, which was the lesson for the 120 minutes, you'll see that that's also the focus for this game and this activity for 614 for 4th grade as well. And you'll notice the same for 5th grade. So this gives them an opportunity not only to learn about the concept earlier in the day, to apply that concept, but then also being able to do this hands-on piece with that concept, hopefully making sure that students really understand this concept. Now for teachers, the important part of this is it tells you what standard we're covering, it tells you the name of the game, but it also tells you what materials you'll need for this particular activity. So looking over this material prior to is very important because you want to make sure that you have the necessary materials in order to facilitate this game. Not exactly sure where this will fall in your schedule, but most likely, again, it will be like a 30-minute block separate from your math activities. So this was a quick overview of the instructional material for math, 4th and 5th grade. We are asking that the lessons that are provided are explicitly followed. You will not need to do any advanced planning, but you will need to make sure that you're reading lessons prior to the day's instruction, correcting assessments the night before because it will lead into our next day's lesson, and making sure that you are familiar with what materials you may need for some of the hands-on activity. If you have any questions or concern, please contact Judy Parks. You can see her email address on the screen. Thank you very much.